Ooh.
Okay, so I got some stretch knit fabric and I wanted to make a really fast maxi dress out of it. Something like this, like a tank situation on top. So I'm gonna see how quickly I can knock this out. Though I've never sewn with stretch before. I tried once and it ended in disaster because I didn't have a stretch needle or a walking foot, but I do have those, though I haven't used them yet, so hopefully they work. But first I'm gonna just do the patterning for it. For reference, I'm 5'8" with a bust of 36.5, a 28-inch waist and 40-inch hip, but I don't think any of this matters as much really because it's a stretchy material, but the bust maybe matters the most. I generally wear a size 6 or 8 in US sizing, if any of that helps. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a piece of paper. The edge of the paper and this line are perpendicular. I'm only going to pattern the top of the dress because I think that's the only part that needs to really be patterned. After I get to the armhole, that's just going to be an angle down, so I'll just measure how wide I want the bottom on the actual fabric. I just don't want to waste a bunch of paper. Okay, I was going to cut this on the fold, that's why I'm marking that there. Then I went out 5 inches for the neckline width, and then down 8.5 for the bottom of the arm side, and 8.25 out for the width there. Then I changed my mind and went up 1.5 inches to 7 inches down instead. Then I went over 1.5 inches for the strap from the neckline, and then I went down 6.5 inches for the depth of the front neckline and squared down to help me draw the curve. I just freehanded this. Then I changed my mind and ended up moving that line up to 6 inches down instead of 6.5, and then redrawing that curve. I still don't end up using this front neckline, I just use the same one for the front and the back, but here we are. So I'm labeling at the front, and then I went down 2 inches and made a line out to help me draw a curve for the back neckline, which again ends up being the front and the back. And I labeled at the back neck. And then I went out 8.25 again because I erased that line from before that I didn't erase. And then I squared down from the outside of the 1.5 inch strap to give me a guide to draw in the arm side using this French curve, which I just got from online. I just printed it from online for free. I tried to make the front deeper than the back here, so I went out a little more shallow for the back, and I labeled both the front and back just so I would know. Then I squared down from the bottom of the arm side to that first line I'd made. I think I ended up angling just out from the bottom of the arm side to the hem for the length of the dress here. And then I added in seam allowance to both the front and the back. I did draw the front and the back pattern on the same thing, but you can do two. I also put a note on here saying that to go down about 50 inches from that line, that 8.25 inch line that I drew for the length of the dress. I think the hem I ended up with was like 32 inches wide, so then I went down 32 inches wide and just angled down to finish the pattern on the actual fabric. And then here I'm just writing that it's the tank dress, so I have that for reference. And that's that. Alright, so I was gonna cut this out on the fold on the floor because it's the only space I have that's big enough to lay this fabric out, the length I need. And I thought I could cut this out on the fold, you know? Like I cut out every other woven fabric, but I didn't account for the fact that this is gonna be so annoying and I'm gonna want to throw it in the trash. So I think for my own mental health here, I am going to just copy this onto the other side as well and just cut it out in one layer instead of on the fold. So I'm gonna go do that real fast. In case I use it to measure down to the hem, I'll just trace this line over here. Alright, there we go. No longer on the folds. Alright, so I laid down the pattern piece up here and weighed it down with a candle and some tape. And I made sure to put everything over far enough that I have, let's see if I can get this in here, so that I have enough room at the bottom here from the edge to do 16 inches. I'm doing 32 inches at the bottom instead of just an even 30 because A, I need seam allowance, and B, I don't know, I thought maybe it would look better a little wider. So what I'm going to do now is take my handy dandy heat erasable pen here and mark around the pattern piece, and then mark where 50 inches is down here, which I have marked with the ruler and the tape measure here. Mark that. Mark 16 inches out on each side, and then cut it out. And then do it again. And then figure out what to do about the arm and neck holes. Alright, so I did mark where the 50 inches was, and I just marked the corners for the 16 going this way and 50 going down. So now I just put the tape measure down, and I am marking it with my pen, and I'm finding that trying to do lines just moves the fabric, so I've resorted to just doing a lot of little dots. Is this the best way to do this? I have no idea, but this is what I'm doing, and I've done a lot of dots so far, and there's many more dots to go. Alright, cut out the first piece here, so one more to go. Okay, so second piece is cut out, same as the first, so I'm just gonna make this one the front. What I should have done is just cut out this wedge here and this one here before cutting this out, but then I also should have mirrored everything on this side, so it would have been easier for me, but I didn't. So instead, what I'm going to do, I think, is just cut out these pieces here and then use them as a template to mark what I need to cut out for the arm and neckline. Okay, here's what I cut out. So now I'm going to use these back templates to figure out what to cut out for the front. Just mark this side with the pen here. And now I'm just going to flip it over and mark this side with the pen here, and that'll give me the template for the neck. Okay, so here's a template for the armhole, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. I don't know if it's matching, everything's matching up exactly as it should, probably because the fabric still moved while I was cutting it. So yeah, I don't love stretch material, apparently. I don't know if I'm going to go back to it, but have to finish this project now. Alright, cut out the little bits here and here. Oh wait, I have to cut the neckline still. The more I look at this, the more I'm wondering if I should just keep it. It kind of looks like a nice boat neck. So I might just try this out. If I don't like it, I'll cut along the marking I have for the neckline. I am going to clip the sides and invert it to the front because of the armholes. Changing out the needle and putting in a walking foot. I'm putting in one of these ballpoint needles. I just put in another needle in here to hold on to. So hopefully that works, and hopefully this walking foot works too, because I haven't tried them before. Alright, looks like it's working at least. Okay, so I'm just clipping together the shoulders up here and the sides. I should have done this after I cut it when I had room on the floor, but I didn't. So now I'm just doing it on the chair here before I sew it up. I gave up on marking when I got down to the hem, and it definitely shows. This is how unmatched it is. So, well, I'm just going to sew up the sides and the shoulder seams and see what I end up with. I'm going to try out this one first. See how that works on this scrap. So, I think number 4 might be the best bet. I feel like it has the most actual stretch in it. 3's not bad either, and this other one just feels weird. So, I'm just gonna go with a slightly bigger zigzag. Alright, so I like the neckline. I like how high it is. And yeah, so I'm going to even out the hem. But other than that, I think it's exactly what I wanted, just a long, comfy dress. I think I have to even the hem, and then I'm just going to make facings for the necklines and the armholes. So I clipped it together, and now I can see exactly where it's not even. So I'm just going to cut there, and hopefully that will make it even now. I'm glad I added extra room to the bottom of this thing so that I have room to do this. I was testing out how to do the hem on scraps, so it seems like just double folding it up twice and then just zigzagging it seems to work okay, and it still has a nice stretch, so I think that's what I'm going to do. But I think I'm going to turn it up and clip it first. Sorry about the AC and the dishwasher both running at the same time. But the hem is done, and I think it looks pretty good. So I'm going to see if maybe that'll work on the arm and the neckline too. Okay, so I tried to do the same thing on this scrap that was cut off probably from the armhole because it has that curve. And I just double folded it and did the zigzag. It's definitely wavy. So, I mean, it stretches and stuff, and it doesn't, apart from the waviness, it doesn't look the worst. But it's definitely not smooth and flat like the hem on the straighter edges. So, I don't know if that will look great on like the neckline or the armholes. I was looking for a way to finish it, and it seems like a lot of time it's binding, or I guess just binding, some kind of binding. So I bet I did see someone use a facing, so I'm going to try that. For the facings, I just traced the neckline and then added 2 inches and cut out 2 of them for the neckline. I accidentally traced the deeper front neckline too to make a facing before I remembered that I only had 1 depth of neckline, and I also traced the arm holes to make facings there too, but I ended up not using them because I switched to sleeves. here are the facings that I have. So I have for the front armhole and the back armhole and the neckline. So I'm going to cut 2 of these. I'm just going to mark around the facings like I did for the other pattern piece before I cut it out. I'm using spools of thread to weigh this down and trying to use up all the scrappy bits first. I'm really jealous of people who have rotary cutters now. I understand why they have them. Alright, the clipped right sides together at the shoulder seams. I'm wondering if I should just do this and then figure out if that's how I want to do the armholes too. This is a gentler curve, so I might do that. I'm just going to do a straight stitch for the shoulder seams because it doesn't need a stretch and I think it won't matter. I could do a quick reinforcement stitch, a straight stitch across it, just because I felt like maybe it was pulling a bit. No, I mean, the front and the back of the seams, that makes it easy. Right sides together, and the seams, the shoulder seams of the facing and the dress have to be matched. Clipped. I think I'm just going to do a straight stitch and see how that goes. Sew it on. Let's see if it looks bad. It's not that bad. Okay, so it's not lying perfectly, so I think what I'm going to do is clip the whole thing because it is a curve, and then stitch or understitch the seam line to the facing to hopefully get it to lay better. So let's see if that works. Yeah, that's definitely lying easier now. And now I just need to go through and sew this seam allowance down to the facing here. Looks pretty good, I think. So I think this was one of those ones where it needs to be tried on. So let me try that. Yeah, that is. Keeps wanting to pop back out despite the understitching too. So I think I'm gonna have to just turn it in and top stitch it down. So hopefully that fixes the issue. I only have this red thread, so it's gonna show, but a bright red instead of like this color. But it's a casual dress, it should be fine. The understitching is making it wanna lie so the back is like just behind the front. So that's good. Try to take advantage of that now. Alright, it looks pretty good, and also seems like it actually wants to stay inside now. So I'm gonna try it on. I am worried that this is gonna start to roll because it's like a raw cut edge. So maybe it'd be better to trim it away, but I'm just gonna try it on again first. Okay, it looks like it's lying a lot nicer now, so that's good. I might trim away the inside because I can see it trying to fold up in here. So I'm just gonna trim it away to the edge. Oops, I'm just trim it away to the edge here, so that I won't have to worry about rolling in the future either. You can't use it as a regular facing, really. It has to be, it was understitched and top stitched, and you have to cut it. So it's like basically a binding at this point, I guess. So I can see why knits are bound. but I would rather do this than binding this because the first sew is easier because the whole curve matches up. I don't know, but this is the first time sewing knit really, so maybe I'll change my mind later. There we go. Looks pretty good. Okay, so I've changed my mind again. I think I'm just gonna do like a short sleeve, like maybe a cap sleeve, but maybe a little longer than a cap sleeve. Okay, so for the short sleeve or the cap sleeve, which ended up being, I think, I started with drawing a horizontal line, and then I took the facings for the arm size that I didn't use and used them basically to trace out the curve of the armhole, which is what they are, I guess. I think it helped that it was knit fabric too, so I don't have to worry too much about this. And I matched up the armpit portions to the horizontal line and the shoulder seam at the top as best as I could. And then after that, I drew a perpendicular line from where the shoulder met to that horizontal line to have a point of reference. And then I traced the curve of the actual arm side using those facings. And then I labeled them so I would know which one's the front and the back. And then I added a 1/2 inch to the cap at the top. I don't know if it needs that ease here or not because it is a knit fabric, but I just added it. I'm guessing here really because I don't have that much experience with sleeves and no experience with a knit sleeve. So then I used the French curve to curve that point back down into the longer curve I'd already made. And then from there, from the top of that cap sleeve, I went down 4 inches. That's the guess I had for how long I wanted the sleeve, which ended up being too long, but I fixed that later. Then I added those 1 inch extensions onto the armpit points on the sides, just so I'd have a little bit of fabric there too. Then I added seam allowance to the top just to get an idea what was happening here. I don't think this is like the proper way to draft a sleeve, but this is what I did. And then I connected that 4 inch length of the sleeve to the 1 inch extension from the armpit to complete that hem of the sleeve. After that, I finished the 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. Then I ended up adding 1 inch to the hem of the sleeve because I wanted to be able to turn it up twice and zigzag it like I did with the hem at the bottom of the dress. That point where the length of the cap, like I did make that more gentle. I didn't do it like at a point. And that was the cap sleeve pattern that I adjusted later. Alright, there you go. So I'm going to try to sew that part together first and then attach from here and then hem this up. This isn't an exact, I'm not going to make it fully a point here. It'll be a gentle curve. I'm gonna write cap sleeve on here in case I forget. I used the brown paper just because it was narrower and I felt like less waste. Alright, so now to cut this out of fabric. Do the same thing and just dot and cut. I note to self, if I'm using knit again, I need to get a rotary cutter and mat because just this cutting part takes forever, but if I can't just cut with scissors because it moves around so much. And I can't even just do quick lines because it moves around too much when I do that. So this polka dot situation is out of hand. So I'm gonna just mark this center point here so I know where to put the sleeve. Okay, cut out one more. Alright, just gonna sew them so they're round, so they're sleeve shaped. I sewed up the sleeve seam. Now I'm thinking, I don't know how this is gonna look yet, so it would be a risk, but I'm just thinking it's gonna be so much easier to do the hem on the sleeve before I attach it, because there's not that much weight stretching it out like the rest of the dress will. So I think I'm gonna take the risk and just turn it in twice and sew it down like I did for the bottom hem. I eyeballed the double fold and clipped them, and I'm gonna do a zigzag for this. I didn't do a zigzag for the seam I already sewed on the sleeve just because I don't think that needs to stretch much, but I want the option here. So zigzagging all around. Okay, doesn't look bad at all. Probably look better with a darker thread, but I'm fine with that. So now I'm going to clip it onto the dress. Here's that center point marking I had. So that goes up at the shoulder seam. Okay, clipped, and now I'm gonna just use a straight stitch to go around the curve of the arm, just because I think it helped to be able to clip it, and I don't know how well I can clip it with a zigzag. The neckline laid better after I was able to clip it, so straight stitch it is. Looks like sleeves, so that's good, and I don't think anything got sewed on weirdly that I can see, so that's good. Alright, this is not my favorite. I think 4 inches is too long, so I'm going to try to bring it up. Okay, so I think I'm going to measure it. I think I look good at 2 1/4 inch instead of a full 4 inches. But before I do that, I'm just going to clip the curves here so that the sleeve lies nicer. Now everything's clipped. I'm just finding the shoulder point here. By the way, I don't think I had to clip the shoulder here, but I did. So, I'm finding the shoulder point here and the sleeve edge, and then clipping it. Alright, so if I want this finished length here to be 2 1/4, that means I need 3 1/4 so that I can hem it up again. And 3 1/4 is 3/4 of an inch less than what's here right now. So I'm just gonna mark 3/4 of an inch from the edge here. That's about here. Okay, I've marked them both 3/4 of an inch. What I could do is undo some of the stitching here so that I have more room to play in the underarm. However, I'm feeling lazy. So I think what I'm going to do is just do a straight line down to where that turned in hem is and just cut all of it off. I clipped. I did do a little bit less at the side seam, the armpit area, just because there's less to work with. But I did the full turnover at the top. Alright, the sleeves are on. Now I'm thinking I might want to add some ties into the side seams that just tie in the back. So I clipped on the side seams where I think they could be inserted. So before I unpick that though, I'm gonna cut out some pieces, I think basically the size and length of this ruler. I think if I have 2 of those, that should work fine, probably. Alright, so I'm just going to trace around the ruler, which is 2 inches by 18 inches. The dot method is nowhere to be found here. Can you tell I'm over it by now? Now I'm just gonna sew them right sides together the long way and leave the ends open to turn out. Just tucked one side in. I'm just going to do a quick top stitch and a straight stitch. I did sew this up in a zigzag on the long seam just because I figured maybe some stretch would be nice because it's not that long of a tie. So yeah, I'm going to top stitch one end of each of them. The other one is going to be inside, so it shouldn't matter too much. Here are the 2 little snakes, the 2 ties, and with one side closed. So the open side is going to be one stitched into the side seam, which I now have to seam rip. Maybe mark on either side like this. Time to unpick. Once I sew them in, that'll take care of this stitch hole I'm making now. Okay, I'm going to feed it in seam side to the floor and closed side in. And I'm just gonna zigzag across this opening for both. And some extra stitching just to really secure it here. Well, that's in now. Hopefully you like it. I honestly love how this dress turned out. I just think it's like the fabric is so comfortable and soft, and it's so flattering because I put those ties in. I'm really glad I put them in, and I love the high neckline and the little sleeves. I like that I can wear it alone, and that it also looks good with my cropped denim jacket, and so if it gets a little chilly, I can still wear it, and you know, and it's good for summer also. I mean, I can't wear it winter when it's really cold, but I don't know, I really like it, and I'm so glad it turned out well after all of that headache with the dotting and the cutting. But the end result was totally worth it.
Ooh. I mean, that's really far away.